Welcome to Holistic Health Heroes, here to help you become your own health advocate and introduce you to some heroes in the holistic health arena. Let's get started. Well, my guest today is Brooke McPoyle, and she specializes in helping people tap into their highest potential through breath, sound, and movement. A former Division I athlete and professionally trained singer, she brings a unique perspective to performance, resilience, and well-being. Brooke is founder of Musical Breathwork, a pioneering platform that merges breath science, fascia research, and sound frequency to optimize human health. So thank you so much for being here.
Absolutely, Carrie. Thank you for having me.
I'm super excited to talk to you. I was telling my previous guests, isn't it funny when we can find people on Instagram these days and just reach out to them and let's have a human conversation?
Well, it's all about education when you're on the mission that you are on, showing people that there's hope hidden in shadowy corners. And yes, often doctors are not even allowed to talk about those.
Yeah.
So I'm no doctor, I'm no therapist. I'm just an athlete that was given no answers for the issues that I ran into. And I chose to discover those answers on my own. And I found something that's been working for myself. It removed my hip click that I've had since I was a child, like since I've walked.
I wanted to ask you about that because thankfully I was able to attend one of your workshops and I heard a little bit about you have your own healing story that kind of, I would say, put you on this path, right? So what was that healing journey that you went on?
It's been up and down for a lot of years. Really, I started in music. At 12, I was classically trained, and in my breath coaching, in my, singing coaching, breath is an enormous part of it.
Yeah.
And I was lucky enough to have parents that supported my hobbies, and they got me a singing coach adjacent to like the one appointed by the public education school system, and our choir teacher, Mr. Gonzalez, who was amazing. Now, Mr. Gonzalez taught us how to breathe, diaphragmic breathe at a young age. And when you would sing for 45 minutes in the middle of your school day, it was like a whole meditation. My energy would just rise going there. However, my breath coaches, my singing coaches, had a very different interpretation of how to teach breath. And at being a kid, you just receive information.
Right.
And then you create your own fusion to make them both make sense. So as I've continued to vocal train throughout my adulthood, I've noticed that there's small discrepancies based between free divers and opera singers. And then when I was exposed to what we traditionally call breathwork, I saw a huge disparity between how you learn as a singer versus how you're taught to hyperventilate, mouth breathe. It's very separate from what I learned. And then when I was 16, I learned how to play golf.
Okay.
And I had some serious injuries. I ended up with a spine that was fused, not like by medicine, but by birth. I didn't know that until I was an adult. When I got x-rays taken, I was having some serious issues with my hip. They felt like it was related to my spine. I found out that I have a very unique spine. In my upper cervical area, I only have 5 vertebrae. So I have a fusion of 3 different vertebrae. And I learned a lot about the nervous system.
There you go.
And nerve impingement and how the soft tissue is holding the spine. And I ended up running a upper cervical chiropractic clinic because it was such a game changer for me.
Oh, wow.
Getting my nerves reopened from where my skull and my spine met, turned my stomach back on, my skin started to heal, my nervous system could relax. So even though I was a great breather, I was still having electrical impingement from my body. And as I ran the clinic and supported Dr. Kevin Davin, a brilliant chiropractor, very low frequency adjustments. He had just a beautiful pre and post-rest protocol. He used a thermography device to measure how the nervous system was being scanned every single visit, which you don't see at the standard chiropractic office.
Wow, that's amazing. So, wow, how did you, so through your being an athlete and into music, did that kind of what by necessity is that what you led, that led you to work for a chiropractor?
It's kind of a synthesis of a lot of things. I was in a lot of pain when I met that chiropractor. I had checked off like 50% of the symptoms, and he's like, if you went to a normal doctor, they would pop you with an MS label or some sort of chronic illness. But under his tutelage, I did a lot of detoxing. And I did his adjustments. And I really regrew health. And it was kind of like watching my body age backwards because there was like a full life force that came back. However, because I just kept noticing, I would come out of adjustment, and I wanted to find a way to be like, okay, how could I hold this as long as possible? And I ended up finding a lot of similarity in the foot pattern. So the golfer in me, right? When I was 16, I learned how to play, and then I played all the way through college. I played D1. I was very in it. My brother and I are fantastic players. My father has shot 62 twice, so I feel like the at-home coaching was pretty amazing.
Oh, yeah.
Pretty top tier. And in the learning and developing a swing like I have as a 5-foot woman, and I have explosive power, so I hit the ball like 250 to 275. I'm going to be signing up for the World Long Drive this year just
Wow.
for fun.
That's awesome.
But it's kung fu like, and that leverage and that power comes from the ground being leveraged. And in exercise science culture, we think of static positions, bicep curls, tricep curls.
Yeah.
You know, we're standing and we're lifting heavy weights. In golf, we're creating momentum and leverage from the degree of separation between your upper body and the lower body. And as I learned how to swing, I was never taught the word fascia, but we were twisting and torquing the fascia from a static load position to a potential load position to a kinetic load position. And through all the synthesis, right? Like, how did I get to where I was? Mostly pain and trauma.
Right. Yeah, pain and trauma leads and informs. And,
yes.
Yeah.
So I hurt my foot. I'm in my early 30s. I have a band. I teach, a couple times a week at the local studio. I hurt my foot. And my doctor says, you have a fascia problem, not a foot problem. And I kept pointing to the bottom of my foot like, no, it's here. And he's like, no, your problem's coming from your calf. So he recommended that I see a fascia therapist, that I release it. And at that time, I couldn't afford the 7 sessions of rolfing that was demanded to maybe take care of the problem. So I basically took in as much possible information. I bought every textbook on fascia. I studied each of the 28 techniques that I really thought were really working the fascia strategically. And I created a little synthesis of 8 rules. And using a mixture of all of these different modalities, and then my own experimentation and what I know about the ground force reaction training, I made kind of like a little protocol. I call it like brushing your teeth. Yeah. Like there's 6, when you're teaching a kid how to brush your teeth, there's like 6 things you got to do.
Right. And different steps to every process.
Yeah.
Well, before we get there, speaking of fascia, because like I was telling you before we started, I would bet that many people listening to this may not be familiar with fascia at all. I mean, even I've only become aware of it in the last few years. I think it's having more of a spotlight. I think people who are yoga inclined are probably familiar with fascia, but the average person out there may have never even heard it. And when I think of it, I think top of mind, okay, connective tissue, collagen, something in there, but you have a much more scientific and succinct way of talking about the fascia. Can you define it for us?
Yeah, I'm actually going to try to illustrate it for you. So the initial way that I was told about fascia was that it's like a piece of saran wrap.
Okay.
So they describe it as plasticky and almost linear, but it's one continuous sheet that wraps everything. And the artist in me was poorly it was uninspired.
Right. By this just plain sheet of holy material. Yeah.
So actually, this was my first model improvement. I was like, this is a better example because it's spider webby.
Okay.
So many people don't like to look at cadaver pictures, but
no,
I
would be one of them.
Right. So we have invented these models in order to make the human body a little less intense or gory to look at.
Right.
So this was the first model that I made for fascia to try to show you that there is a grain to it. It's a spider web. It's not just a piece of plastic that's super thin. Yeah. There's actually a granular to it, and there's webs. So it's containing a liquid. So I originally made a model with several strips of these and then showed them through water in a vase on one of my videos. And I was like, this is the best example of fascia. Yeah. And I've made some minor improvements. Now, even in this, within the fascia itself, there is parts of it that are more dense. So fascia is a triple helix collagen fiber network that is made of one connective tissue. This by far is my favorite. This is a sea sponge.
Okay, yeah. Or the loofah, which I've seen, right?
The loofah is another fantastic example.
Yeah.
And now what happens over time, like if you could imagine creating a model of the body, more like an engineer, less like a doctor, and we were to take this sea sponge and we were to stack a whole bunch of them as tall as you are in the shape of a human body, right? Then what we would do is kind of open the sponges up and put rocks in that represent like your heart, represent your stomach, that represent all of your intestines, and then we put your brain in, right? And then the brain is the computer chip. It's like the electrical circuit board within our house. It's running all the wires, right?
Yeah.
So then from the brain, we would have all of these nerves bundled down through the spinal column. And then from the spinal column, we'd have these little tinier nerves, like so these electrical wires that would come out and touch every cell of the body, right?
Yeah.
So those would all be held by the sponge. Then we'd have our respiratory set. We would put the lungs in, and that would be mirrored to the heart. So as the heart pumps, the lungs would inflate to create the combustion engine, that circulation. Then we would put all of the pumps through the back of the heart for the blood system, for the lymphatic system. And then this webbing of tube, right? So all of the circulation fluids that, you know, our CSF fluid that goes through the spinal column up around the brain, all of our fluid rhythms are controlled by the breath. So the breath and the heart are the combustion engine for the body, right? The fascia is the scaffolding for the entire body.
Gotcha.
So I'm dealing with like a body, right? Just like you are.
Right.
And I would say that the fascia in my body was probably really healthy for most of my life. But as a kid, my right hip had an impingement, maybe because of how I was walking, maybe because of some birth issue, for whatever reason.
Right.
And I think that the fascia around my hips started to get too tense. Now, as I grew, as I aged, the fascia in my right hip started to accumulate little tiny densifications, just like the sea sponge
And
does.
am I right to say they call those adhesions?
Yes.
Okay.
It actually depends on the research paper that you read. So there's a number of different countries studying the fascia right now. Some use the word densification.
Okay.
Some use the word adhesion.
Right.
Now, to clear those up, adhesion, they use that word because it means the fascia has adhered together. But really, when you look at it under an ultrasound, what you don't really see the fascia. You can see the fascial layers, and then you can see the fluid that's trapped between the fascia layers. So under imaging, it looks like the fluid has become dense, or the fluid has become stagnant and is trapped.
Well, it's interesting. So it's making me think about why frequency, aka music, would be so helpful with because of the fluid and things like that, and vibration and frequency, right? That's really interesting. And such a great way to visualize and explain what the fascia really is.
Just a hydrating sponge.
Hydrating sponge. That's what it boils down to. It's that sponge. No, but I like that because it's hard to visualize, and that another word that I've seen like in your videos you talking about that I think we don't talk enough about with health is that's electromagnetic. And I don't know if I'm jumping here or if this is all intertwined, but you hear that we're electrical beings, but and you think grounding. Okay, let me go get my feet on the ground or walk on the beach in the ocean and somehow connect to nature. How does being an electromagnetic being weave into all of this?
What a cool question. So the fluid within our fascia is called hyaluron. Like there's a fluid within the fascia and there's fluid outside of the fascia.
Okay.
The fluid inside of the fascia is a plasmatic fluid that is housing electrons. Now there's a lot of debatable science. There's a lot of theories, and everybody's just like, wow, this is really hard to study because it literally changes form. It goes from a liquid back to a solid because it can carry electricity. Yes, it's piezoelectric. Piezoelectric is just saying it's the same way this microphone works. When we create pressure, there is a nerve impulse that carries it back to our brain that says, oh, something is touching me. That's all piezoelectric is.
Okay.
But it's also polymorphic and metaphasic. And the best way that I found to explain this is as a child when you're running and then you fall.
Yeah. Face
And-
plant.
Yes. And you just kind of roll around, you get up and you're laughing. It's because our body is actually able to, in a state of health, kind of liquefy and then also harden. So if you think of a power lifter getting under a bar and taking that big deep breath before they push up, it has this ability to become solid and very sturdy as well as becoming liquid, which is why a lot of athletics, optimal sports scientists and coaches are getting into how do we operate this with conscious control. Now, I feel like I detracted from your question. What was
That's
so
okay.
good?
The whole electromagnetic aspect of it. But as you're talking, I'll just make a comment real quick. And that is, I can't help but think about, how you're describing it and everything in the human body being so interconnected and so intertwined, and what damage like the current modern day like medical system has done to the mentality of us by separating everything. Like if you've got a lung issue, you see a pulmonologist. If you've got a foot issue, you know what I mean? Like if you've got a head issue or brain issue, you see someone else, a heart issue. Everything's so separated. And this conversation makes me think about how that's a great way to flip the script to say, no, it's not. It's all so intertwined.
Imagine the body as a battery and the fluids inside of you made of mostly salt water. And the cathodes to charge that battery up are your hands and are your feet.
There you go, the electrical thing then.
Yes.
Yeah.
So if we have stagnation of fluids at the hands and the feet, we can, in a sense, we're shortening up the charge that we can get. So if we think of it very simply, illness and disease is when the battery is low. It's going to become susceptible.
Right, like cellular dysfunction.
Yes.
Yeah.
When the energy is high, we're going to have full feeling, full free optimal health, and like the electrons won't be stagnant, the lymph won't be stagnant, the combustion engine won't be stagnant. So to me, everything is becoming very simple. It's what kind of quality water are we drinking? Because our body is a river of waters that are fluctuating. So if we are putting in, they could be doing the best stuff ever. If you're putting soda in 5 times a day, I can't help you. You're going to dehydrate the fascia and you're going to kill so many cells in there. If you are someone who has no budget, right? But you wake up every day and you walk on the shoreline, you walk outside barefoot and you take in sunshine when it comes up, and you're drinking the cleanest water that you can get, even if it's reverse osmosis with a little bit of salt, and you charge it up outside, and you sweat 3 days a week, and you are working on your toe dexterity and finger mobility. You are really investing in how your battery is charging up. And vitality can, in my opinion, really be seen as how much electrical energy do you have, how much resistance to outputting this electrical energy do you have, and then how grounded is that electrical energy. And it becomes way more like an engineer and a radio tower. And then when we add singing to that, if you imagine like an opera singer being fully grounded, taking that big breath, and then trying to resonate to their full capacity, which is truly measurable as an opera singer. You can either hit the back of the auditorium with your voice, or you cannot. You can either do that consistently through the show, or you climax and then you kind of fall off towards the end because everything gets a little tired.
Interesting.
So there's measurable ways to kind of feel the power of the impact that you can make.
I love that. I love it when you bring in the singing thing, and that was something that really attracted me to you, because musical breathwork, I was like, oh, what's this about? Because a few, I don't know, years ago, whenever it was, I felt like this just intuition, like that I needed to take singing lessons. And I would tell people I'm taking some singing lessons, and they're like, oh, really? Why? Like, are you going to perform? And I was like, no. Like, let's not go there. Definitely not planning on going out and singing or, doing open mic nights and singing or anything. I just felt like I want to work on my voice. I want to use my voice. I want to practice my voice. I want to breathe better and more efficiently. And so I took some singing lessons, and it's like a personal growth exercise for me.
It's willpower.
But I thought, like, there's so much more here, you know. And then of course, I fell off that habit. Things happen, life changes, and I didn't go back. But I think about it all the time. And like, since you are a singer and a musician, like, let's talk about that a little bit. Like, why would singing be good for someone's health or personal growth?
So in the information age, we have an opportunity to just call other countries and be like, hey, how do you guys open your temples? Like, when you want to make some rocks sacred, what do you do?
Okay.
Across the board, across every different culture, there is a theme. There is a pattern at how they open sacred spaces or how they bring honor or reverence to a space. And that's fire, earth, air, water. Been the same since the beginning of time. That's often how people honor the dead as well. And so there is a formidable pattern of connection that exists within us and exists to the things around us. The fascia is the interstitium. There is an interstitium between sound and the energy around us. I absolutely believe there are muscles outside of the body that we've become a little inherently disconnected to, that our children know how to use.
Muscles outside of the body. How does that work?
It's like, we are an electromagnetic frequency machine, so we exist in a field around us, not just in the awareness of our body. But if the nerves within the body start to go null, like dull or numb, we start to lose those things. So charging up the battery of the body, looking at the body like a battery that you input more electrical signals in, you actually start to emit a higher field. And when you do that, you can influence a space. And everybody's experience when they've rolled into a room that was kind of like sad or depressed, and you've lifted it. You've said the right joke. You've created some sort of harmonic quality between the energy of the people.
I think of heart math and coherence.
Yeah, it's an absolute real thing. And we're just kind of brushing over it. And I'm not going to get into telepathy or the telepathy tapes or how long that has all been around.
Yeah, that's something I haven't even dove into yet.
Yeah.
Maybe it's another episode.
In the 1950s, there's some like very reasonable science for the fact that like we have done this already. We're just uncomfortable, although we're not with cameras and cell phones. Like, it's reasonable that we can just pick up the phone and I can call my business partner in Austria.
Right.
But what is it connected by? By a frequency. That's all a phone number is a frequency. So when we talk about an animating body, you are the frequency of your, in my opinion, of your breath rate, plus your heart rate, plus your brainwave frequency, and how that is emitted through the resonance of your electromagnetic charge. So if I have weak energy, you're not going to feel much coming from me. My heart rate is probably elevated and maybe disconnected to my brainwave frequency. Now, if I drop my breath rate into 4 breaths a minute and I slow everything in me down and I sync my breath up with my heart, and my brain waves have a chance to fully perceive, to be fully brought back into this moment, right? I have now more of an electrical presence. Now, anyone who stands on a stage and performs knows exactly what I mean, because when you walk out on stage, you are there. You have called all pieces of yourself back. And if you're insecure, you can actually feel the division of your mindset. If you get on a mic and you're worried about how you sound, you're not fully present with that note. If you're a golfer stepping up over a shot, if I'm attached to that result, I'm not fully present with that moment. And it's measurable. We can feel it coming off of people, which is why it's amazing to be around celebrities. Sometimes you're like, wow, they slowed down time. I'll never forget this moment. But why is that? What do we mean by an electrical atmosphere? How can we create our own electrical atmosphere?
Yeah, that's what I want to do.
The ancients, fire, earth, air, water. In that offering to the interstitium of the electrical energy of light, of life, it becomes almost like a sequence to open a dialogue with the things that exist outside of us. It's offerings. So to charge a space, you have to offer something. And often a song is used in ritual. So a prayer said out loud or a song said out loud in ceremonial magic. So in magic that, you want to change the weather pattern, and anybody can look up prayers from like the ancient druids, the ancient bards. You would go to a particular hill and face north and sing a love song to the flowers
really
of April.
Wow.
and ask for that divine vibration to join you. So song was a conjuring. Song is not only an embodiment and an offering, but it becomes an absolute seance when you do it with a sacred meeting or you do it around a portal that's open.
Oh, wow. That's going deep there, Brooke.
Well, I mean, somebody's got to. The monks, when they would sing in caves, often those caves were cymatic resonant temples. You know what I mean? All of the churches, go back to the Tartarian churches, those were made as acoustical, vibrational things with water reservoirs underneath. I mean, I'm absolutely, like, I put my money down that they're going to say that the pyramids are a cymatic structure that charges the water reservoir that's underneath it. It's a sound structure. I believe that, like, some of the old priestesses were singers and they knew how to correctly harmonize the people in order to capitalize on sound being used. But people can't even make mighty sounds if they can't breathe right.
That's right. That goes, yeah. So, and I also heard, this is kind of connected. Recently, I heard, and I don't remember where I picked this up from. I've heard it a few times. And that is, like, if you want to manifest something, bring something into your life, that you should be singing about it as you walk around your house, or you should be, it doesn't even have to be the words, just the fact that you're singing.
Have you heard the video, like, everything is working out for me? Everything is working out
yeah,
for
right,
me.
I think so.
Everything is working out for me.
Yeah.
To me, that's such a simple, I sing songs all the time. I make up songs about my future boat.
Okay, nice.
I've been singing songs about my future boat since I was a kid.
Good. Awesome. So if you want to, like, obviously, like, you talk about manifesting, some people are, I like what you were saying in one of the videos I saw where you're like, I don't mind a little bit of woo-woo, but I am basing this on a lot of science. So, you're able to bridge the gap to both. I mean, I appreciate that. I don't mind woo-woo either, but I also want legit, backing. So, like, this idea of singing to bring something that you want to reality, can you speak to that a little bit?
I actually don't promote or believe in manifesting outside of alignment. So like, I watched a pretty significant experiment very close in my life. And I watched one of my dear friends use the sunrise to manifest her dreams. And within 9 months, she literally got everything on her list. It was pretty outstanding to watch. So every day for 9 months, she went to the beach for sunrise. And she asked for very specific lists. And I was grateful enough as her best friend that she shared that list with me, told me the experiment she was doing. And I'm like,
go for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
On the day of the eclipse, a year after she did this experiment, everything in her life seems to be perfect. Everything was ripped away. Her, like, literally, her boyfriend died. Her dog died, like, in this motorcycle accident. She coded in this tiny life dream, this traveling dream, all came to this really dramatic end all of a sudden. And the takeaway, like, it kind of terrifying to have your best friend in a totally different place in the world, like, stuck in ICU, and you're hoping that she lives, but, like, understanding that if she does, she has, like, hopefully her leg is saved. And
right.
The takeaway that I had from that was we need to align what we ask for with what is in harmony with us. Because we can get, like spoiled brats, what we want. But if it is not meant for us, it will be taken away as soon as we stop beating the drum. So I look at the field, right, everything that exists, as part of this one unit. And as we interact with this unit, it changes. And when it changes, it's up to us to handle the oscillations, right? But when we are demanding from it, when we are projecting into it, when we are asking, I want to ask with the wisdom of harmony. I want to ask from the universe, please help me hear the whispers that you give me so that I will stay on the path that you have chosen.
Right.
I want to experience my greatness, but I may not know all of the choices and all of the things that I need to experience that greatness. So I open myself up to the feeling of abundance, to the feeling of peace, to the feeling of divinity. I open myself up to the beauty in my life in all of the millions of ways it can come. It doesn't have to look like one thing or this other thing. And my whole thing about manifestation is if you can manifest from a feeling place, you're a million times farther ahead than anybody asking for a certain house or a certain car. And vision boards are cute.
Yeah.
It's a way for you to dialogue with the unseen. Like, I'm not saying there's anything bad with having like a vision board and working towards goals.
Sure.
But I think that my attachment to it is like, we are weapons.
I get that. I get that in the sense of like, it's kind of like the difference between, you know, asking a genie, rubbing the lamp and asking the genie for wishes versus participating in your future and acceptance of what is, you know, kind of, that's what comes to mind for me.
To be honest, I'd love to just exaggerate on this a little bit because this was a huge part of my philosophy, I think, upgrading.
Okay,
you
great.
know, it's like, oh, manifestation works. That's amazing. Let's use it for everything.
Right.
To like, holy shit, it works. And we need to be very careful.
You need to respect it.
Yeah. And I developed my own little conversation with myself about a Stargate.
Okay.
So this like kind of came to me as like in my meditations, and it's never left me, and I really like it. And your ring is actually a perfect identifier, the triangle, right?
Yeah.
So if we imagine life in the infinite future as these like constellation and stars in front of us, and each little doorway in the constellations represents how we can move through that choice. So we have millions of choices to make, how we communicate, the words that we use, and in my opinion, if I can just align my choices, so like working with the universe to help me pick the trajectory of my life that is in alignment with the feelings that I desire. So I pick 3 feelings.
Okay.
Me and my girlfriends do this every year. It's like, what's your Stargate? So I call it a Stargate.
Okay.
So it's a way to navigate the infinite, right? And we make little acronyms. So like currently mine is, I want all of the choices in front of me to be dialed into what feels good, what feels simple, and what feels divine.
What feels good, what feels simple, what feels divine.
But some of my girlfriends are like, I want the choice that feels loving, that feels beautiful, and that feels luxurious. So your Stargate can shift based on what you want, but it's a means to dial in the feeling instead of the outcome. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does make sense. Yeah. I, again, go back to that picture in my head of like the genie versus it's such a cheap way, I guess, to get something. Yeah. I always kind of had that too, where I want to participate in like the manifestation things of the world, but also kind of underlying that this is just for fun. Like this is fun, you know, and I have goals in mind. But I didn't really have like full faith in just manifesting. But it's a really interesting story about your friend and how things can,
it's life-changing,
disappear. Yeah.
And
wow.
she was hitting the drum beat, and it was when she stopped hitting the drum beat, it was when she stopped showing up to the sunrises, and it was like on the day of the eclipse.
Yeah. Wow. That is wild. Well, how is she doing today?
She lives a very extraordinarily different life. Yeah. And I think that she's with a man that is a much gentler counterpart to her. I think that their meeting has put her in a dimension that she didn't expect.
Yeah. Wow. You never know with life. You don't know what's coming for you, as much as you plan and, you know, try to fulfill on different goals and achievements. We just have to take every day, day by day. Another thing I picked up from your work was about how, and maybe this has to do with athletics, I'm not sure, about how, you know, there's all this focus in popular culture around exercise and movement. I often say movement instead of exercise. I think it's a little bit less intimidating for some.
For sure.
But where you had said something to the effect of like, there's like more time under the barbell or more time on the yoga mat, that's just not going to necessarily get you optimal health. Can you talk a little bit about that?
So I'm somebody who used to train 6 days a week, no matter what. And I would train hard, and I would always warm up, always warm down. So I had a great stretching routine. I have spent maybe more hours on a foam roller than anybody you've ever met.
Okay.
With very little results, by the way. I never recommend foam roller now to anyone because it doesn't get deep enough into the tissues. Oh. You can move lymph around, but there is much more efficient ways to actually unwind the fascia. So I wish if I could go back in time and communicate a message to my 16-year-old self, I would have told myself to spend 30% of my training time doing a massage. And now I'm not talking about like massage, like you're just paying for
like go
it
to the
5
spa.
days a week.
No, yeah.
I'm talking about a therapeutic sports grade massage that I would do on myself. So while I'm building all of that muscle and while I'm training, I have full nerve flow. I have full circulation in my fascia tissues. There's no issue with nutrition because some people grow muscle asymmetrically.
Yeah.
And I think that's often because we don't have the same openness in our fascia tension on either side. Most people have asymmetrical fascia tension. One of the easiest ways to test this is to spread the toes of both of your feet. And often if one foot is underperforming or we've lost function on that baby toe, or the big toes have started to kind of curl in like bunions, so we're pushing off up the chain, up the body chain, we're going to start to have some tension. And that tension can be, oh, my left knee hurts.
Right.
So then we start to favor other things. But that translates to how the muscles develop too. So I grew up in a body that had crazy right hip tension, that I would push both sides of my body. And I ended up tearing my right quad a couple times because I didn't know how to do a fascia flow.
Right.
And so my breath rate was pretty good. I wish I understood how to use it more under pressure.
Yeah.
But if I could go back in time, I would tell myself as an athlete to 30% of the time go into recovery mode. And the recovery mode, my way, is very efficient. It doesn't take a lot of extra time, but it keeps the muscles building in a way that is sustainable. It allows us to build without tearing, which is kind of difficult sometimes when you're an athlete and you're like, okay, we have sprints on Tuesdays, but I have a tournament on Wednesday. How fast am I going to recover?
Right.
So recovery time is a huge thing you kind of deliberate with as an athlete, and this shortens it significantly.
And this is part of the work that you're doing in the 6 steps, right?
Yeah, the eight rules of the fascia flow.
8.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I had 6 in mind. Okay, so do you want to talk a little bit about those steps? Or because I'm thinking about, practically speaking, for people out there, a lot of people I bet have a hip thing or an ankle thing, or right now I have an arm thing. Like, we're all dealing with some kind of tweak that's happened, right? And some of us might know why, some of us might be, where'd that come from? But, can you speak a little bit about like how working the fascia or doing some of these self-maneuvering techniques can help support people's overall health?
Yeah, well, what I found out was, for me, is that I had asymmetrical fascia tension, and I didn't want to, lay for an hour. So I developed a sequence that uses just a ball and a thick book. No expensive tools required. And we established some parameters. So in my course, it's a 4-hour course, but really all you need to look at is the 20 minutes to do a walkthrough. So the science kind of gives us the idea of, this is why we hydrate, this is how we hydrate, this is how we warm up the tissues, this is why we have to warm up the tissues, and this is why we have to follow the grain. In order to rehydrate the tissues, because most fascia release processes have to do with finding the densification and then manually removing them. And what I want to show people is that we can ask the cells that are in the deep tissue of the fascia. We didn't know they existed until 2018. And we have a way of compressing into that tissue and asking the body to re-elicit the hyaluronic acid. So something that people can do if they have carpal tunnel, right, which a lot of office workers do.
Yes.
Carpal tunnel, the hand is interesting because it mirrors the foot, right? So we have 26 bones in the feet. We have 2 bones in the lower leg, 1 bone in the upper leg. I can't remember how many bones are in the hand, but it's very similar. It might be the same amount. So the hand attaches to the lower arm, 2 bones there, and then 1 bone in the upper arm. So when we start to lose function in our pinky fingers, right, what often happens is there's either a nerve that's been impinged somewhere, or a nerve that's going to a muscle and the muscle is starting to atrophy. So either the muscle is kind of pinned off because of nerve flow, or there's a circulation excess. So 2 things people can do. You can grab your arm here. I feel like you can see me. And you can just scrape this way. And if you do this 88 times, the palm of your hand will start to kind of change. And if you have stagnation in the fluids, you're going to feel like your hand becomes a little damp.
Okay.
Now, sometimes people don't have any nerve issue. They have a circulation issue because they're not sweating enough.
Yeah.
So sweating 3 days a week is an easy way to systemically improve the fascia of your entire body, because we're creating circulation in all of the tissues. And the skin itself will help us sweat out any unneeded or stagnant fluid.
Okay.
So just by improving the water quality, like spring water in glass is ideal. The least amount of water that we can drink out of plastic, the better.
So, so important. Can't be overstated. Yeah. Do not drink out of plastic.
Exactly. And then it's creating movement. And the movement to me becomes, it's massage. The movement is massage in my world.
Okay.
I believe in gymnastics. I believe in good coaching. I believe in exercise. But there's a bajillion coaches out there. There's not many teaching us how to recover as fast as possible. So this is one of the few companies I work with. I love Body Lever. I love Fascia Stick. Again, my sequence just uses a ball.
Okay, yeah.
But for somebody struggling with tennis elbow or carpal tunnel, because we don't have 4 hours here to talk about the sequence, we can use something as small as this. This is replicating basically a pencil eraser. We can create movement in between the bones. And if we have scar tissue, right, because some of us have broken up dog fights or we've fallen on our hands, just by simply doing this, we're helping the fascia to open and realign, just like brushing your hair.
Interesting.
Or brushing your teeth.
And just for those who can't see right now, she's just rubbing a tool up every, what would you call that? Like
phalanges.
From the phalanges of your finger on your hand, and just rubbing it up. And you can see how that would be a pain reliever, really. Like you say, the movement in your world is circulation, yeah?
Yeah, the fascia has a flowing fluid through the tube. So the fascia, because it's a triple helix collagen fiber network, the triple helix itself makes it like a straw. So it's, when you look at like live cadavers or like a body that's kind of fresh dead, I know it's kind of gross, but there's this silver, almost luminescent liquid that is inside of the fascia tissues. And when you can tell the difference in the cadaver photos if the body's been dead for a long time, because the fascia will just look like string. It'll look like knotted spider web.
Interesting.
And in a real, in something that's kind of more fresh dead, you'll see the fluid through it. And this plasma that's inside of the fascia is what all the scientists are arguing about. That's why nobody's really touching it yet on the forefront, because they don't really understand it's a fourth phase liquid.
Yeah. Well, something else I really wanted to talk about with you is the nervous system, because I feel as though the nervous system is having a moment, and at least in my world, I'm hearing more and more about it. But 5 years ago, 10 years ago, no one was talking about the nervous system. I think it's such a core part of health and healing to heal your nervous system. Even with my own experience, if you're doing all the right things, you're getting enough sleep and you're eating exactly right, and you're in the sunlight and this and that, if you're not healing your nervous system and you got a health problem, you're not going to get well, in my view. So you talk about the connection between the fascia and the nervous system. What's that about?
Well, the fascia is holding the nervous system. So my real goal, my mission, right? Because there's a bajillion sick people out there.
Yes.
And I get so many DMs that kind of take me on an empathic whirlwind.
Okay.
People that are looking at surgery dates right around the corner and like begging for hope. And then some athletes that just want to optimize, and it's a whole whirlwind of what people are looking for. My mission is to help bring people to gamma.
Okay.
And gamma is how the nervous system electrically plays between a new brainwave state. So in my opinion, people that are stressed and their nervous system is dysregulated, they're just living in something that we call high beta.
Okay.
So it means that their frequency pattern in their brain is elevated. So if I could use my finger as a little example, it's like so it'd be about 30, BPM, which is a little slower. So dum 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 dum. It's funny because you can make a song out of it.
Yeah, you could. There's a rhythm there. Yeah.
And you can kind of hear it in women's voices. I use women because I feel like
we're more musical.
You can hear it in your mom when she's a little stressed out, just a little bit of strain and tension, So I picture the brain waves as emulating that. So a dysregulated nervous system to me is a brain that's moving out of control. And the easiest way for us to pull the brain back into control is by using our breath pattern. Now, I love the breath. I've been teaching the breath for a long time. Yeah. I teach a shape because I'm a singer. And in shaping the breath, we stop just like inhaling and exhaling like this collapsing system. It's a Fibonacci wave. And if you would like to...
Yeah, please instruct me on how to breathe.
Yeah. So the easiest way for us to slow the brain down is by slowing the heart rate down. The easiest way to slow the heart rate down is to slow the breath rate down. And then the fascia tissue responds. So the fascia and the brain are one and the same. We can be in a complete relaxed setting. Somebody can slam a door and it will spark your nervous system response because of sound.
I like that you have to repeat it. The fascia and the brain are one and the same.
They're not one and the same. They're connected. The fascia is going to respond to the brain.
Gotcha.
Although I got to tell you, I feel like sometimes the fascia responds faster. Have you ever dropped, like you open a medicine cabinet, something falls and you catch it?
Yes.
I think that's not I think the fascia is a little, that's just my own theory. I have no science to prove that. Please don't call me out on that.
Disclaimer.
Yeah. But, the fascia will respond to the stress, even if the stress is not actually present. So when you read an email, a scathing email, and your body starts to tighten, your fascia is responding to what your brain is perceiving as a threat.
I see.
So the fastest thing we could do is breathe right. So if you can
sit up straighter.
Yeah, and actually, I love this trick. If you can take your thumbs and hook them under your armpits and then pull your elbows kind of close, that to me locks your upper body into such a clean position. And then I like to tilt my pelvis a little forward. That way I can kind of feel my pelvic floor. Okay?
Feeling it? Yep.
Yeah, then that lumbar diaphragm kind of opens up in the back. It's like a little uncomfortably straight in the low back for most people. And you can release your hands, but try to kind of maintain that posture. It's like a way to dive into it.
Yeah.
Then from here... we're going to place the back of the tongue against the soft palate. And the way to do this accurately is by slow motion swallowing. So if you kind of like scoop your saliva up from your tongue, okay, you'll feel a lift here in the back. And if you do that right, you're actually creating a valve pressure. So we're going to ask all of the air that we inhale to go up through the nasal glands all the way up here, okay? All the way out here. So a giant triangle, that's everything we want to fill up.
I want to like touch it so I know.
Yeah. And it might be closed. Most people have like some sort of asymmetry when they breathe in. So we can actually ask the nasal glands to open. All right, now we're going to, with our tongue in that position, we're going to inhale deeply through the nose, try to feel all of the places and push your belly button out while you inhale. When the belly button's full, I want you to keep the air down in the lower part of the lung field. I want you to inhale more and inhale through the back. Okay, now inhale more through the sides. You might feel like your arms need to come up. Okay, and then inhale more to the chest. This is your maximum capacity. This is everything stretched out. Now I want you to exhale with control, empty the chest, then the sides. Then the back. Keep the belly out. The belly should still be out now. Then release the belly. All the way. Exhale. Pull the belly button to the spine. Tuck in on the lower rib cage. Lift up on the belly button. Just feel your minimum and release.
Whew. Yeah.
That's a full shape.
There you go. That's filling up everything. Every
Yes.
last little corner. Every bit.
So the standard untrained lung can only hold 5 to 7 cubic liters of air. But the world record holders are at 22 cubic liters of air. And it's not a body physiology huge difference. We can all double our lung capacity.
Yes.
It's learning how to move the muscles out of the way. The lungs are not these balloons that we fill up. They're kind of like spongy balloons, but it's in a vacuum. And when we engage and strengthen and make flexible the muscles that are around the lung tissue, the lungs just open. They're weird. Their bronchi are just inflatable. They kind of stick out like fingers. Yeah. They're highly asymmetrical. The right lung is way bigger than the left lung. And there is, like they kind of span out, but most of the lung tissue is on the bottom side. So anytime we're breathing shallowly into our upper chest, our lung tissue is only inflating by 30% or so. And then when you go to sing as a singer, we have no power up here because my muscles can't really be trained to push on my lung field right here.
Yeah.
But from my belly, I can pull in, I can push in like an accordion from my intercostals. So my different singing coaches had different ways to use the intercostals like an accordion, to use the diaphragm as this huge pressure valve. But it's always about keeping the air in the lower part of the lung tissue. That way we have control over the note.
Interesting. So when you do practice breath work, what kind of benefits would the average person get? I mean, I'm sure you're working with maybe athletes or some high achievers and stuff, but I think too everyone should be doing some kind of breath work. It's a clearing the mind. Like when we breathe shallow and fast, that's an anxiety state, right? You probably know a lot more about that than I do, but to deepen your breath, there's just a number of different benefits to your overall well-being.
Yeah, I don't think all breath work is the same by any means. I'm very proud of the Mighty Breath. It only takes 10 minutes, but it's doubling people's lung capacity in less than 6 weeks.
Which is amazing for reasons of what
we got to clean the lung field first. So as you know, like in the indoor environment actually is not a healthy and conducive environment for good breathing. So I educate people often about like, do you have adenoid? Is your adenoid swollen? Like, let me tell you about honey. Let me tell you about gargling hydrogen peroxide, because we have to clean this area. We have to clean the nasal glands to make the breath process fun and enjoyable. We need to make it a resonant chamber. When it's empty, open, and toned, that's when we start to naturally want to sing. And to me, that's how we get to gamma. I'm just the gateway drug to singing. I want to make everybody sing. It's a musical life.
I love that's a great mission to be on. I'm not kidding. It's like that phrase I saw, some meme or something. It was, I don't take drugs. I am drugs.
Yeah. Yeah. We naturally want to sing. Like before we had radios on, like there used to be songs that were sung in the fields. Farmers had their own poetry that they would sing. There was whistling happening when we would bring our carriages in. Song is meant to be part of us. It's meant to kind of carry the winds of us like through the life and the pain and the suffering and the beauty. It's meant to be for all of it. And I see us much as we are a wind instrument. There is nothing more unique than a voice.
That's awesome.
And as many instruments as me and my bandmate play, everyone can tell if you miss the note that you sang. Nobody could really hear it. Like if I miss a couple ukulele notes or a guitar note, because nobody's ear is tuned to that. But everyone can hear a missed pitch.
Right. Yeah, that's true. It's like, oh, that doesn't sound good.
But each of us have our own unique vocal pipe. And when you see the respiratory situation for what it is, it's kind of like a horn. The trachea into the soft palate. The soft palate is the vibrational horn. Like, so we have our vocal cords that come together, but everything kind of lifts off of that. So when I teach people a Mighty Breath, we want to clean the lung tissue. We want to clean out the nasal glands. We want to reorient the trachea posture. Sometimes we have to really actually rebuild tone the muscle, which is so easy to do. Something called a detox breath. If you lock your tongue into that position I told you, okay, inhale through the nose, and I want you to rapid fire exhale.
Breath of fire, yeah.
But try to feel it. Try to feel the air come in, like kind of controlling the breath of fire. I squinched my nose because
so you can feel it that way. Yeah, you can feel it.
You have to open up. I feel like if you had a different shaped face, maybe you don't have to do it. But when we do something as simple as that, and we start to really feel the muscles, we get acquainted with how the intercostals open. We get acquainted with the 3 ridges on the diaphragm. We can control and use the air as a fire hose. I'm not a big fan of hyperventilating, but hyperventilating like that for less than 90 seconds, only through the nose, is going to help us clean it.
Yeah, oh, I like that. And this is something everyone can do. I mean, I often think of people who are chronically ill because, it's kind of like my mom's story, and she's had lots of different things where, you have to be immobile, you have no energy, whatever. But I'm always looking for ways you can quote unquote exercise or cleanse by just sitting, and you can work out your lungs, you can work out your breathing. It's a real exercise to do you that if you take some intention and really focus on
I can make people sweat laying down for sure.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I can attest to that in the workshop. I was sweating with that fascia work, let me tell you. But before we go, because I can't believe it's almost, oh my gosh, like almost coming up on an hour here. I want to make sure that everyone knows where to find you and the things that you have to offer. You mentioned the breathwork course, but I saw you had a couple courses, so maybe give them a quick plug and let people know where they can find you.
At musicalbreathwork.com, I actually have a free breath and fascia test. I've been a breathwork teacher for the good part of 15 years. I've also been a singer and a gardener, so breath has always been part of everything. The fascia, I just started introducing 2 years ago, and the results have been kind of life-changing because as it's paired with the breath, the way that I teach it with a slower breath rate, there's been some pretty significant brainwave patterns, pretty significant improvements in how people are relating to outside of their body. Not only just when their knee pain goes away, they have an improvement of life, but there are some unseen mechanisms that happen when we start to look at the body as a collective unit. And my job is, I'm just an athlete. I'm trying to be the greatest that I can as a singer and as an artist, and I hope to share these sequences with you guys. So on my website, I built a free breath and fascia test so you can kind of identify which one you would want to work on. Really, how is your breath rate? What is your breath rate? How are you holding your breath? What is your capacity at? That way you can kind of make an educated decision on, is this right for you? Is this right for you now? I have something in there called a brain and breath connection. And if you're interested in my work but have no idea where to start, that's the place to start. And it really outlines how the breath and the fascia are connected. And if you pay enough attention, I kind of give it away all in there. I really just want people to understand that joint pain, in my opinion, is now very much an option. I used to have incredible joint pain, even though I was, I'm only 34, but at 30, I had incredible arthritis on my right-hand side. That's gone now. I do not have to have cortisone shots. I do not have to have any inflammation. I can actually train harder than I ever have, and I just want to help bring that relief to others. And it's been awesome to see how people are getting out of their knee braces. They're replacing PT now with exercise. They're replacing time where they had to just sit on the couch, and now they can play with their grandchildren on the floor. So,
great.
Yeah.
Oh my God, such a wonderful conversation. Thank you so much, Brooke. Everybody go check her out, musicalbreathwork.com. And for everyone listening, I just want to say, stay healthy so you can stay happy, and I'll see you on the next one. Psst, can you do me a favor? Text the link to this episode to a friend who you know needs to hear this. By doing so, you are helping me with my mission to open minds to all the holistic health solutions that are available to us all. We hope you'll support our small business and shop ngvitamins.com for all your supplement needs. Oh, and don't forget to follow, hit the bell on your platform of choice so you never miss an episode. If you enjoyed this show, please consider sharing your review on iTunes. Until next time,